It's a pretty crazy story. The lady that I want to talk about for a little bit is a lady named Eva Renee McClelland. And she was a lady who knew how to keep secrets. She kept secrets really well. In fact, she kept secrets that changed history, which is a pretty amazing thing. As she explained, she can explain this bizarre life that we haven't been able to explain before. But as she told me about it, it all became clear on what was really going on there. And there's huge mysteries still to be resolved here that we don't know about. There's a lot of things, a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we have not put together yet. But we do know that this story is full of intrigue and hidden identity and changing identities. I worked 8 years on putting this together. And I really enjoyed the last 2 years that I worked with Doug in writing the book. That was a lot of fun in putting this together. Doug thought he could put this book together in about 4 to 5 months. And we found out that wasn't going to happen. It was just too complicated to do. But as we did this, we put more pieces into the puzzle. And we learned more about what was really going on there during that time. I met Eva in 2002. And she was a wonderfully intelligent woman. She loved chocolate. That lady loved chocolate. Every time I went to her, she wanted me to buy her some semi-sweet chocolate. And I did. In fact, the day she died, in her purse was 2 bags of half-eaten semi-sweet chocolate. And she liked Pepsi and she liked classical music. And she had a God-given talent for poetry. And she could write 2 or 3 poems a day. And they were good poems. She published the book in 2003. She got lots of recognition for her poetry. And she was very good at that. She had a strong belief in God and she loved nature. As she revealed her story to me, nothing ever changed. No dates, no times, no conversations that she had with her husband. Everything was exactly the same. And it took me 4 years of listening to this to kind of believe, I think maybe this is real. And I went back and forth that this can't possibly be real. And then I said, well, it's got to be real. You can't make it up. And then I went back to, can't possibly be real. She would not talk about it in her apartment because she thought it was bugged. So we'd go out and drive, and I would record her. And I've got recording after recording of her talking as we went. Her mind was amazingly sharp. People say, well, geez, she was 93 years old. She must have dementia. Well, we were asking her questions up to 2 weeks before she died. And she was answering them just as if I asked her 5 years ago. The lady was amazing. Let's talk about her husband. Her husband for 31 years is a man named Nick Nicolay. She loved him very much and he loved her. But honestly, Nick was a pretty mysterious guy. When the phone would ring, he would pick it up but not answer it. If the person talked on the other end and he recognized the voice, he would answer. Other than that, he would not answer the phone. He had her sign everything for him. In fact, he had her practice his signature so that she could do it right. When he got mad, he'd pick up the phone and make a phone call and say, prepare the plane, I'm leaving tomorrow. Of course, Eva hears this thinking, what the heck is going on here? That's a pretty crazy thing to say. He wouldn't let her have a TV. They listened to radio, and they got their news from Paul Harvey. When he talked about his childhood was in Texas, in a ranch in Texas. His father was in the oil business. His mother and father died very young. He was left an orphan. He never graduated from high school. He never talked about high school because Howard Hughes never graduated from high school. He spelled his name like nicely, N-I-C-E-L-Y, but he called it Nicolay. Probably just to add to the confusion that he wanted to create. And when he liked something, when he heard something that was true, he'd have a great big smile on his face. And when he didn't like something, when he heard something that he thought was false, he would just rant and rave and go on and on and on and on. And that would drive Eva crazy when he did that. From 1982 to 2000, they lived on a 20 acres of wooded property. And it was 8 miles west of Troy, Alabama. Nick called it the ranch. The ranch in Alabama. From his Texas background. The ranch was a strange place. I've been there 4 times. I was there twice with Eva and 2 other times. And it was a strange location. I'll tell you what, if you wanted to hide, If you were looking for a place to hide, this would be the place that you would go. My wife Susan went there with me. And it's an interesting place to go. It's a nice place to leave, actually. But Nick had to be able to leave at a moment's notice. And so how did he do that? He kept his clothes in barrels on the ranch. They were barrels. They were like trash barrels. And Eva told me this. And I looked into it. He kept his clothes in barrels. And they were folded. The clothes were laundered and folded neatly in the bottom of the barrels so that he could pick them up and be gone. At a moment's notice, he could pick up the barrels, hop in a truck, and be gone. And there would be times that Nick would just disappear. He'd just be gone. Let's go back in history a little bit to Panama and Howard Air Force Base. Eva went to Howard Air Force Base in 1967, but it wasn't until October 1969 that she saw this very charming, tall, 6'4", blonde-haired, very intelligent man, gentlemanly man, with AIDS around him all the time. Very noticeable. They didn't have a conversation until November. And Eva looked like Liz Taylor. The portrait in the gallery kind of shows that. We have a picture in the book that kind of shows that. She looked like Liz Taylor. Of course, Howard had proposed to Liz Taylor earlier, and so there's a physical attraction there between the two. And I think that's probably what caused the beginning of the discussion with them. And then Nick disappeared for 2 months, for December of 69 and January 70. He just disappeared. He's gone. When he came back, Eva said, I had this strange feeling. I had this strange feeling about this man. Well, she should have had a strange feeling about him. He bought her a ring, a very, very nice ring, a 2-carat ring. Supervisor, that time, aircraft supervisor, probably making about $9,000 a year, something like that. The ring is on display. It's a $5,000 ring. Very, very pretty ring. She was very proud of that. And then they were married in May of 1970. After they were married, Eva thought, I'm going to find a little bit more about this because there's a lot I don't know here going on. So she said, she asked him about his business dealings. And his reply was, they're too complicated to explain. She asked him to meet his friends who he did business with. And he said, that's just too dangerous. I can't let you do that. She told him she had the feeling she was being followed. And he said, you are being followed. And he said, but oh, by the way, you need to be careful because you could be kidnapped. On top of this, Nick would disappear every now and then and just be gone. She began to put the clues together. One of the clues in late November of 1970, Eva was getting ready to go back from Panama to Alabama and visit her mother. Nick comes up and says, how would you like to go to Las Vegas and meet Howard Hughes? And of course, this was a shock to her. And she said, well, yes, I'd love to do that. A few days later, she says, well, Nick, are we ever going to go back to Las Vegas and meet Howard Hughes? And he said, no, they said it wasn't wise. They, being the aides, said it wasn't wise. What was happening at that time is the stand-in Howard Hughes, according to the media and the books and and magazines and newspapers at that time, was very, very ill, very near death. So Howard was almost reaching a point that he had to go back and be Howard Hughes again. And so all of these things now begin to fit in together. And Eva didn't know these things until I told her. And said, this is how it all fits together. He would just get up in the middle of the night and do business. He did a lot of